We have a special guest here today, folks. Jordyn Close, who's known by many different names. She can tell you some of them once we start talking, but probably best known as Deputy Director of Ohio Women's Alliance. And I'm really excited to have you on, Jordyn. As you know, one of my favorite subjects is reproductive justice.
Period.
And you all are, I would say, our foremost reproductive justice organization in the state of Ohio, illustrious in the nation. And I've done a lot of amazing things to support, women, gender expansive people. And just really honored to have you here. So thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I love you. And I love to yap about RJ.
Yeah, I know this. And I won't even ask you because I know this is, how many podcasts have you done at this point?
With you?
Just in general. This is the second one with me. But I was on the sidelines for that one. I wasn't technically interviewing you.
I don't know. A handful.
Yeah.
Definitely over the years. I've somehow made a career out of yapping about abortion access. So
yeah,
that's been great. I don't know how many podcasts. I need to probably start keeping track.
You said you've made a career of yapping about abortion access. Like, what was that? I would guess that's probably not when you were 5. You were like, yes, that's going to be my career. What did you want to do? Like, when you were a kid, what were you like, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up?
Well, of course, everyone, all of the adults in my family were always like, you need to be a lawyer when you grow up, just because I have more of an abrasive personality, whatever. But when I was little, I feel like I had more of the classics. I wanted to be a vet at one point. But I didn't really have a decided goal. I actually withdrew from high school and got my GED back in the day and then went to cosmetology school. So that's what I wanted to do for a while. But then when I was in cosmetology school, that was when I had my first abortion. And then I started volunteering with Abortion Fund of Ohio. And now here I am. I got the RJ bug, the politics bug, and I couldn't give it up.
Yeah. You mentioned that you withdrew from high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that the people that you went to high school with were probably like, yeah, Jordyn, she's out of here. And now you've done so many amazing things. And I think that is just a testament to like your path being your path. Because when you told me that you told me this a long time ago, and I thought that when I think about like your position now as a deputy director and being so young and doing the work that you do, I just think it's really inspirational because a lot of people will try to write you off early. And I think that what I've seen you be able to accomplish is really, really amazing. And I want to know kind of like, what was your thinking during that time where you just like, I want to do hair. What they're talking about in school is not what I'm trying to talk about. I know what I want to do. So I'm out of here. Like, what was your thinking at that point?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's very sweet. Yeah, I have been very lucky and grateful in my career. And something that I frequently tell like younger organizers is that this is not the kind of work that you need a college degree for. I love my academics. Shout out to my academics, my theory people that have supported the creation of all of this movement spaces. But
yeah,
you don't need a college degree to organize with people. You need relationship building skills. And so for me, when I was in high school, I was really just going through it. yeah, I was not having a good time. I lived in a very rural town. There were not a lot of people of color. And at one point, also my school district was racist.
Yeah.
And so at one point, because I was struggling, I remember the administration of my school essentially told my mother that if I signed a piece of paper saying that I didn't plan on going to a 4-year school, that I didn't have to complete some of the core classes. And so that's how that started. But then I just didn't want to be in that school system anymore. So then I actually transferred to one of Ohio's most infamous online schools.
Oh God, ECOT. I knew you were gonna say ECOT.
Back in the day, before the scandal happened, I was at ECOT.
Yeah.
But even then, I just once I had made the decision, I think that particular school fit wasn't for me. I was kind of checked out, and so when I decided that cosmetology was what I wanted to pursue, I was like, I've had enough. I'd rather just take my silly little test and get my silly little GED and be on my way to cosmetology school.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really a matter of, I just knew that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And I have multiple Capricorn placements, so once I'm locked in on something, it's hard for me to go back to old things that I knew weren't for me. So I got up through Bell Fountain and I moved right on back to Columbus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even just that such a young age, just not, like taking agency over your life and not letting anyone else make a decision for you or put you on a path that seems right for, sometimes, while I think education is great and I went through and did what I did, like, I don't necessarily think that the framework of schools in terms of like, just, they feel like mills sometimes that don't necessarily like encourage you to like critically think, depending on what school you're at, right? And so I just think it's really, I just really appreciate whenever I hear you talk about that, because I just think that if you look at the through line from like that time to like what you're doing now, it just shows just your courage as a person.
Thank you.
So you also we talked a little bit about just you being from Bell Fountain. But you were born in Columbus?
Yes, to be clear.
Okay.
From the 614, from Columbus.
Okay.
But I spent a lot of my formative years in Bell Fountain. So 6th grade through what would have been my graduation of high school.
Yeah. So going from Columbus to a very rural place, was it like a culture shock for you? I mean, you said a little bit like about your district, but just like, what was going through your mind?
I will never forget when my mother informed me of this decision. I was like, okay, so like, what school am I going to go to? And she was like, Bell Fountain Middle School. And I was like, I had never experienced a school district that only had like one school. And so the name of the school was just the town. And I remember that being the thing that like stood out the most to me.
Yeah, you were like, so I only have one school to choose from?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, what place are you taking me to? But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. I had lived in Columbus my whole life until then. All of our family was in Columbus. So yeah, it was a bit rough, but I have an older sister. I love her so much. So it was really just,
you two clicked up.
We was rocking. We still rocking. I love you, Aubrey.
Yeah. Right, because you do need somebody to help you like get through a situation like that. As a person who is from a small town and now lives in a bigger place, like it's so different. You know, it's just so, your everyday is so different. So you mentioned like getting your GED, going to cosmetology school, and your abortion. I'm assuming that experience is what brought you to RJ work? Is that the right assumption?
Yes.
Can you walk me through a little bit of like what you went through with that you said like, this is not just like a moment in time for me, but like something that I want to focus some of my efforts on?
Yeah, it actually took a little bit of time. So I had an abortion in 2015, when I was 18, and I just really went about my life. It wasn't it was not a hard decision for me. It was an immediate decision. Upon seeing the pregnancy test, I was Googling nearest clinics near me. And so I had to travel to Columbus for my abortion. Unfortunately, the clinic that I went to back in the day is closed now. Pour one out for Founders. I miss Founders.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had my abortion, very easy decision. And then I believe it was about 2016 when one of the first heartbeat bills was introduced in the Statehouse, that I shared my abortion story publicly for the first time on Facebook, because I'd be yapping on Facebook. And much more back in the day. I've gotten it under wraps a bit.
Right.
But that was the first time I publicly talked about my abortion. And then from then, my friend Samantha shared with me a comedy event that was happening in Columbus, which was Stand Up for Choice, which Pat Deering and Amber Falter used to organize. That was a quarterly comedy show benefiting a different repro org in Columbus in Central Ohio. And so my friend sent it to me. I was peer pressured into going to the event. And I was like, well, I guess since I have yeeted, I should pull up to this event and show support. And then I was organized by AFO's past executive director at
now,
that
what is
event.
AFO?
Abortion Fund of Ohio, Ohio's only statewide abortion fund. AFO is 100% like my like heart. I love AFO so much. But I was organized at that event to start fundraising for AFO. We were in the middle of our biggest fundraiser of the year, Fundathon, and I am very competitive. So, so I started fundraising and volunteering with AFO, and from there, they just really couldn't get rid of me. So I was volunteering there for a few months, and then from AFO, that's how I was introduced to abortion storytelling. I was nominated to be a part of the first youth testify cohort, which was We Testify in partnership with Advocates for Youth. And I think the mixture of finding something that felt really important to me through AFO and then being introduced to abortion storytelling, a lot clicked for me then. I was like, oh, everything that I had known about abortion or reproductive justice prior to this was that like safe, legal, rare bullshit, and that like abortion is this hard, treacherous decision, and that wasn't my experience. And I actually remember when I started doing abortion storytelling, I felt a bit uncomfortable sharing my story because I thought that there was something wrong with me because I didn't have a hard experience.
Yeah. Okay.
And so doing that abortion storytelling and being able to break down the like internalized stigma that I had, but then also just hearing other people's abortion stories. It's like once you share that you've had an abortion, like people are coming out the woodwork.
Once it comes out your mouth, it's like it's out, right? I know when I told my abortion story, I had an abortion in college, and I knew, like you said, immediately. I think maybe I thought about it for a couple of days. But for me, I came from a very conservative, not in terms of like, we don't think that people should have rights. Conservative in terms of like, we go to church every week. I have to clarify there. Christian family. And for me, it was, I thought more about that. Like, and I thought more about my grandma and my mom, because I knew that if I went home with a baby, they would take care of it. And I thought about all of the caretaking that they had done all along their lives. Like, my grandmother had my mom when she was 16, which was like normal back in like the late 50s, coming from the South. And I thought about the fact that she had been taking care of kids her entire life, and I knew she would take care of mine, and I knew my mom would, and I didn't want them to. I wanted them to like be free, you know what I mean? So it was like not only a decision for me myself, because I knew what I wanted to do and what my goals were, but I wanted freedom for the other people who I knew would do their best to like be a village for me. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I made my decision. But I remember, like, the first time I ever talked about it, I said to somebody, the people that I was talking to, I said, like, it was the first time I had ever stood up for myself, and made a decision that was like solely like, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to try to change my mind. Like, I knew what I wanted to do. And so once I started talking about it, like, and even now, sometimes when I have that conversation with people, I can tell it makes people uncomfortable, right? That I'm comfortable with talking about it, but it's like, it's my story. And I think I just like recently told you that I feel like it's really important that, you know, the work that you do and other folks in this community too around storytelling is so important, because it allows other people to feel comfortable to talk about something that, like, healthcare should not be controversial. And yet here we are. You mentioned the safe, legal, rare conversation. And we're in this space, right? So I understand what you mean by that. But for the folks listening, like, why is a term like that harmful?
Oh gosh, all of the abortion stigma. I think the way that I think about it is like, first of all, having an abortion is one of the safest medical procedures. It's safer than having a root canal.
And it's all very old.
It's people have been having abortions since Western medicine has even existed. People have been having abortions since the beginning of time. And so to have a phrase like safe, legal, and rare implies that it shouldn't really be happening, but if it has to happen, only like here and there, only if it's serious, only if the life of the pregnant person is in danger. And it's shameful. It brings shame to the notion of having an abortion. It makes it seem as if you have an abortion, or, oh, God forbid, if you have multiple abortions, that you should feel bad about that. And I don't feel bad about having a root canal. I don't feel bad about going to the psychiatrist. I don't feel bad about getting a pap smear. It's healthcare. It's you making the decisions for your own body and for your own future. And there shouldn't be any shame or stigma tied to that. And because we have allowed antis and the right and white supremacists to control the narrative around reproductive freedom, reproductive rights, justice, and abortion access, we're left with crumbs on our own side. Why are people on our side that are supposedly values aligned and say that they are pro-choice or pro-abortion, and they're still stigmatizing the people that actually access that care, which is why I think abortion storytelling is so important. Like, we should not be talking about abortion without centering the people that have experienced it. Abortion storytellers are the experts of their own experiences and can answer all of these questions. Like, we don't have to have these think pieces about how people feel after their abortions, because we could literally just ask the people that have had abortions. The majority of people that have abortions report that relief is the number one feeling they feel after that. And so it is entirely different from the main narrative that has surrounded abortion in media since the mid 60s, when it was started to be used as a political pawn and talking point. No one was really talking about abortion like that before.
No.
And then, you know, the rise of the evangelical right voting bloc is my like hyperfixation. So we don't have 6 hours for me to get into that.
We don't have all day to tell you every documentary that I have watched personally.
Yes.
Because when you start, for the people that are listening to this, when you start to go down that rabbit hole, you recognize the propaganda. And we see some of it coming back around when you hear about this pro natalism or pro birth, what is it, pro birther or something?
There's so many different names. Natalism, pro birth, the quiverfuls. Don't get me started.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh my Lord,
I don't know what that is. I don't even know that I've heard that, but I see some of that same propaganda coming back around in relation to those particular movements, right, that take, you know, folks' bodily autonomy away, and then in that way goes down this road of like taking away other choices, right, for people. So we're talking about that, right? And so we've talked about abortion. What brought you to kind of the reproductive justice space? Because I've seen you like, and I'll just say this too, because I think it's important, and I think this is another conversation that we can have around, like, I've seen you organizing in other spaces too, right, against police violence and other things in the community. All of those things intersect, right? And so first, I want you to tell the listeners what reproductive justice is, how it's different than like a reproductive rights kind of like conversation or framework, and how all of it intersects like when you think about your own like work and organizing.
Yeah, so reproductive justice is a framework that was created by and for Black and brown women and gender expansive people. It was created by 12 Black and It was created by 12 Black and brown women and gender expansive folks in the early 90s. And it was very much a response to the lack of inclusion and thought around Black birthing people's bodies within the mainstream reproductive rights movement that was very white led, giving very like second wave feminism, where abortion access was very centered, and really only the legal right to abortion. And the way that I came into the RJ framework was because of Black women, the Black women around me that taught me. I am so grateful to every Black woman that has taught me something along my path into the RJ space and RJ framework. The core tenets of RJ is the right to have a child, the right to not have a child, the right to parent that child and raise a family in safe, sustainable communities and environments. And the fourth tenet is the right to bodily autonomy, which is more expansive than abortion access. Really, every movement could be under under the RJ framework, because it is a framework. It's something that can be applied to any movement space.
And it has the human rights.
Yes.
Framework.
And so police violence is an RJ issue. Environmental racism is an RJ issue. Palestine, Sudan, Haiti, Congo, those are all reproductive justice issues. And so I came into the RJ space because of my abortion, but I also came into the RJ space as a whole person and as a Black woman. And the RJ framework, I am biased, but the RJ framework is like it for me. I am a studier of Black feminisms and Black theory. And the RJ framework, it's just, once you really like understand it, it's like you can't turn it off after that. Like everything is RJ.
You can't unsee it.
Yes. And everything is connected. put that on our Ohio native, Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah.
Everything is intersectional.
Yeah.
You can't have a safe and clean environment to raise a family in if our children are being killed in the streets by police, if the kids on the east side have higher rates of asthma because the air is polluted than the kids up in Dublin. And so like all of that is intertwined. It's not just the legal or the legal right to abortion or the financial logistical access to abortion. It supports the wholeness of the individual, but also the community.
Right. Because, much of the conversation around abortion is, the Roe versus Wade, and in these spaces we always say Roe was the floor, right? Because it didn't necessarily take into account the everyday lived experiences of people, right? It was about choice, but did not necessarily take into account lack of choice, right? And who has lack of choice. And so I agree. I felt when I discovered the RJ framework, I definitely felt at home there because it follows a person's entire reproductive life and all of their experiences. So I said a little bit about Roe v. Wade. You all. So let me not even go there first. We should talk about OWA, right? For the people that don't know, what is Ohio Women's Alliance? It was founded in 2019. What is Ohio Women's Alliance?
Yes, we just celebrated our 6th birthday.
Happy birthday, OWA.
Shout out OWA.
I have to disclose to the people that I'm on their C4 board. So that's my little disclosure here. So if you can tell I know a lot, it's because I do.
only baddies on the board.
Right, period.
OWA, Ohio Women's Alliance, is a statewide Black-led reproductive justice organization, and we do quite a bit.
What don't y'all do? We should start.
Girl.
Yeah.
Our core framework, we followed the reproductive justice framework. We focus on year-round civic engagement, communal wellness, wellness for Black and brown women and gender non-expansive people, and also a lot of direct service and mutual aid. So we have a C3, a C4, and a super PAC. We don't. She just be over here. We don't use her a lot. But yeah, we do year-round relational organizing. We have our member assistance program, which is a practical support program that is in really close partnership with Abortion Fund of Ohio, a lot of our independent clinics to help break down those barriers to access, because we do have the legal right to access to abortion in Ohio, but if you don't have the coins, if you don't have someone watch your kids, if you don't have a ride there and back, then what is a legal right without access?
Yeah.
So in addition to that, we run very large field campaigns, very much.
What's a field campaign for the listeners who don't know?
When you be getting texts, when you be getting calls, when people be knocking on your door trying to talk to you about the issues at hand, that's a field campaign. And that is about to start this year. Be nice to canvassers. They're real people. They're trying to make a change in their community. Be nice to them.
Facts. Please be nice to the canvassers.
But yeah, a field campaign is the outreach to voters, to our community about what is going on. So for us, a lot of that looks like our state and down priorities. So next year will be a really big year for us with the Ohio Supreme Court seats coming up. Last year, of course, was a very large year for us and everyone else. And so our campaign work is tailored to be responsive to what is happening at the current time. So any given year, our priorities will shift based on what we're hearing from our community and what they need. So in 2023, it was the Reproductive Freedom Amendment.
Don't just slide past that. What did you all do in 2023 that I think the listeners should know about?
Ohio Women's Alliance was the only Black-led RJ org at the founding table of the Ohioans for Reproductive Freedom ballot initiative steering committee. We later brought in New Voices for Reproductive Justice, and of course, AFO was on the steering committee, but not the executive committee. So we were certainly not the only Black-led, but we were the only at the executive founding table. We, as the youngest and smallest organization at the table, ran the largest field campaign. We contacted over 1.3 million Ohio voters, and thankfully passed our Reproductive Freedom Amendment. And it very much was Black and brown women that took it over the finish line. If you check the exit polls, if you look at the field campaign, if you look at the communications that we were putting out, we actually ran an entirely separate digital and comms campaign alongside our ballot initiative campaign to counter some of the messaging that was coming out of that campaign that we felt would be harmful. And so we ran a separate campaign that had a lot of imagery that was like local to Ohio, the cardinals on there, red clover plants, which is an abortifacient plant that is native to Ohio and Appalachia, Black women, like just having joy. In the billboards and the wheat pasting all said that whether you have had an abortion or will have an abortion in Ohio, that there is a community here that loves and supports you. And that was important for us to do because a lot of ballot campaigns are heavily influenced by, a lot of times, consultants that aren't from here and want to win a campaign. And you have to make some compromises to do that. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to counter some of that. And that was the ballot campaign, very close to my heart. The digital campaign that we ran alongside it is hands down my favorite piece of work that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah. How did you feel in that moment when you knew like it was going to happen?
Oh my gosh. We were at a watch party downtown and I was in the war room because we didn't think the results were going to get called that fast. And everyone else was in like the party room. And someone like yelled that AP had called it. And I just remember sprinting to the other room and like finding Rhiannon and Lexi, who is my best friend and the executive director of Abortion Fund of Ohio. And just we were confident that we were going to make it, but you never know till it's over.
Yeah.
And especially in a state like Ohio, that is very hostile. But yeah, I get emotional thinking about it. It was...
Yeah, we were having a watch party for Columbus Can't Wait. And yes. I remember telling everyone, and I just like it felt like, I don't know, there's no really words to describe knowing that something like that meaningful and knowing the people behind it, right? Like knowing that it was people that I've worked very closely with, either through Planned Parenthood or even just my own work, that made that happen. Because I remember telling people, 2020, 2019, like, this is going to be overturned, right? Like, no, it's not going to happen. And then it did. And just to see folks, really put in the work and really come up with messaging that was going to resonate, fight to have the type of language that was going to resonate. I'm forever like a fan of y'all's and proud of you because I know how hard it is. I mean, you mentioned being at, the executive table and being the only Black-led organization at that table. That couldn't have been easy, I would guess.
No, it was actually very harmful. It was a very harmful campaign. I think because of the electoral politics of it all, and I have come up through doing campaign work. And so I understand logically some of the concessions and compromises that had to be made. And OWA and the other Black-led orgs that were at the table, not only were we fighting just to collect the signatures and to educate voters and to get it across the finish line, we were also fighting every day to make sure that the campaign was as values aligned as possible. There was a lack of investment in research and polling and talking points for Black and Brown communities. And so OWA used our own yearly budget to be able to ensure that that work was done. We wrote the talking points for Black and Brown communities. I made sure that abortion storytellers were centered and uplifted in the comms coming out of the campaign in a way that was least extractive as possible, because there's always some level of that in electoral campaigns just because of the structure of those systems. Yeah, it was hard. We have really great partners, and there are a handful of RJ orgs in the state. And so when you're operating from a different value system, it's hard sometimes just to get through the campaign.
Yeah.
And I think that there has been, because of the lack of Black leadership in repro spaces in Ohio over the last few decades, it is just all too often that we are like the first concessions made, or that we're not invested in enough. And I think that if there had been more work done in the past decades around breaking down abortion stigma and doing more of that relational organizing and political education, that we may have had a better and easier time talking to some Ohio voters. Because I don't buy into the trope that like Ohio voters like don't know what's best for them, or like can't have these conversations.
They show that they can
the majority of Ohioans support access to abortion. And yeah, it was, all of the work I do is because of the really deep love I have for both Columbus, but Ohio. And Ohio was the first state with a Republican trifecta supermajority to pass a statewide reproductive freedom ballot initiative. So Ohioans know what's up, and they want abortion access.
What we want, right? Even when sometimes our values seem misaligned and we vote for things, years later that make no sense. But I won't go on my tangent about that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I want to ask, you mentioned political education, and investing like early in that political education may have made the experience for you all, and like honestly all of us, a little bit different, right? Like the battle, it may have still been a battle, but it would have looked different. So can you talk about like how you all are investing in like political education at OWA for folks from our communities?
Yeah, so that is probably the most critical piece of our year-round relational organizing, is really just meeting people where they are and having real conversations about what is important to them. None of our campaigns follow the classic model of like pulling up to a community 3 or 4 weeks before an election, bombarding people with calls and texts and door knocks, and then ultimately shaming voters if they don't turn out, if a win isn't had. we hope to kind of turn that model on its head. We have much longer field campaigns so that we're able to have multiple touch points with the same voter and build that relationship. Like, our communities know who we are. They know who OWA's organizers are because we're in the community year round. We don't just pop up before an election. And that matters. The relationship is the most important part of it. You can write the best talking points that have ever been written. You can pay the most fancy consultant in DC, and it's not going to matter if you don't have trust with the community.
Right. Well, I mean, 2024, voter turnout in Black communities was down, right? And it's because everyone doesn't have to do work the same way, but you should do work when you know that it works, right? Change the way that you're approaching it. And so I hear a lot of conversations about what went wrong. It's like you can't parachute into communities, but the investment has to be there, right? Like the investment for year-round organizing has to be there.
Yeah. And it's not, and it's unfortunate. And a lot of RJ orgs have to be so focused on the direct service piece that they're not being invested in, and they don't have the capacity to engage in more advocacy. And so programs are being created that are for our communities that don't necessarily have the right input from our communities.
Right.
And especially with RJ, it is so expansive that there are so many entry points to the work, whether it's having an abortion, whether it's our Be Well program that is for Black birthing people up to 2 years postpartum, whether it's being one of our canvassers or our RJ table cohort members. It's so many different touch points. And so having the skills to be able to say, oh, you came to us because you were interested in learning how to write testimony. Well, let's talk about how whatever policies is happening at that current time impacts all of these other things and people's material day-to-day needs. And just highlighting the through line between all of that, because electoral politics is not sexy a lot of times, and especially for Black.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like, especially for Black and brown communities that have routinely, systemically been let down, whether by design or by oppression, like getting Black and brown people to re-engage in this system that is harmful, is still harmful, is hard. And from an organization standpoint, like, we don't take that lightly. I refuse to ever shame a Black or brown person for not voting, whether it be a federal election or a local election. But if you change your mind, we have the resources for you to do so. If you're thinking about it, we have the resources for you to do so. If you don't want to operate within that system, we have 12 other programs that you can still be involved in your community and make a difference. And maybe once the trust is built with us and we're a trusted messenger, and a big moment like the Reproductive Freedom Amendment rolls around, people showed up for us because we had that trust, whether or not they inherently believed in the electoral system at large. And so that honestly is the biggest piece of political education. Of course, all the boring stuff like polling and writing talking points, but it really is just finding what is important to the individual that you're talking to and being able to articulate how that goes back to the RJ framework, which with the RJ framework is kind of easy because RJ is everything. RJ is so expansive. And so it is just being able to connect those
single
dots.
Issue lives.
Period.
Yeah. People have a tendency to see RJ as it's got too much stuff in it. And it's like, but your life has too much stuff. Look in that bag of all your baggage. It's a lot of stuff, right? And it doesn't always just have to be baggage. It's joy. It's happiness. It's the good things. It's the bad things. But it's still things, right? It's still a lot of experiences that you go throughout life, or the experiences that someone else that is close to you in life is going through. It's climate, it's democracy, it's all of these things. And that's why I appreciate the framework so much, and the people that created it. Just, y'all were just, shout out to y'all. Right. They really did. Which, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, but I want to talk a little bit, and I also just want to say this too. Like, I appreciate y'all's model and how it engages direct service work and electoral work, the policy pieces, because for the reasons that you said, like, if people don't have their material needs met and you come to them talking about you should vote for X person, that sounds so wild when you think about it. And not just when you think about it, these are not things I'm thinking about. These are conversations that I've had with people in my own family or friends. I can't afford to do X thing. I don't have this thing. And you want me to go vote for someone who has, not allowed for me or voted for policies or whatever to make these things a reality for me. I think I'll pass, and that's a real thing. And so I appreciate that you all are pulling all the levers that you can, not only to get people to engage in the voting process, but because people deserve dignity and in their everyday lives. They deserve to see a change in their material conditions. So that's what I want to say first. Secondly, I want to go back a little bit because we talked about the passage of issue 1. But the fight is not over, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people thought, like, oh, we did that. Weed, abortion, we're through. Ohio legislature said, no. Can you say a little bit about why we must remain disciplined and diligent and continue to show up for the folks that choose to show up?
You sound like Aramis.
I did. He was here a couple weeks ago. Disciplined. He was. He was sitting right across, and maybe he rubbed off. He's now has rubbed off on me. But like, why should people continue to show up, right?
Yes. So even before the legislature started with their shenanigans a few weeks ago, the passage of the
let them shenan once.
What the helly?
They'll shenanigan. Yeah.
But like even before they started all of that, the passage of the Reproductive Freedom Amendment did not like overnight overturn the 30 plus bans that are currently on the Ohio books, whether it be trap laws, targeted regulations against providers. And also, I think people think that the outright abortion bans are the only things that need to be overturned, and that is not the case. There are still over 30 bans on Ohio's books. The only one that has been stayed in the court currently is the 24-hour waiting ban, which is a huge victory.
Yeah.
And also a lot of those other bills, like abortion clinics hallways having to be a certain width, passing those things that the average voter, average citizen is not thinking about. Those are the reasons that a lot of our independent clinics have closed, is the things that change how they have to operate, that they can't keep up with, that they don't have money to do remodels on all of their hallways.
Right.
And so we have to go through all of those one by one and challenge them in court. And we have like brilliant legal minds in Ohio. Shout out to Jessie Hill, our queen of repro in Ohio, leading the charge in a lot of those legal battles. But that's going to take years. It takes years to implement a statewide ballot initiative, particularly one that has to overturn so many smaller bans. And so that process is still ongoing. And in addition to that process, of course, the legislature is trying to push some things through that are hidden within other bills to try to undo our Reproductive Freedom Amendment. It still has been things that are hidden in other bills, like the death penalty bill, that aren't another outright counter to our ballot initiative, but I do believe that if they saw an opportunity to do so, they would. We've already seen it happen in other states like Missouri, which theirs was a bit different than ours. Ours is harder to overturn directly, but there are definitely ways that they can prevent the rollout of the Reproductive Freedom Amendment, tie up those smaller cases in court. And so certainly the fight, really, the way that I explain it to people is us winning the Reproductive Freedom Amendment just put us back on level ground. It, of course, was a monumental victory, the campaign of a lifetime, and having that in place is essentially the same thing. Essentially,
like
as
having
Roe. Yes. Yeah. And so it does not address any of those other things. It doesn't address access. And so while all of that is happening, you mentioned our model earlier. That's essentially why it's direct service, mutual aid, community relationships to try to support the people in the here and now in real time that are trying to access care, that are trying to feed their families, that need access to those resources, while always keeping an eye on and keeping one foot in the long-term electoral power building strategy, because you have to do both, especially in Ohio, where Black-led RJ orgs are like few and far between. Like, it feels very pressing for us at OWA to be able to do both and show up for our communities in both ways.
Absolutely. Well, and these things take investment, right? They take a lot of money to be able to run a year-round field campaign, to be able to run a ballot initiative, to be able to even run mutual aid, right? It takes a lot of resources. So that brings me to my next point that I want you to share with the listeners. You all are having a gala soon to celebrate, the success of OWA, the many organizations don't make it, for 6 years. And I know that sounds like not, but you just mentioned like the RJ landscape, right? And how there's a handful of RJ organizations in the state of Ohio. So can you talk a little bit about like what was the catalyst for doing the event and like what you hope to happen?
Yeah, so before our Celebrate BLACK Gala, we'll be having a 2-day Midwest Strategic Summit where I'm very excited. We're bringing together 75 BIPOC leaders from across the Midwest to build power and build relationships. We don't know all of the orgs that are coming. All of the orgs that are coming don't know each other. And the RJ framework came heavily out of organizing that had happened in the South. And I am so grateful to all of the blueprints, all of the badass organizers and activists that have really given us a path and given us something to build from. And I think it's critical, especially in this moment, that our region has our own narrative strategy, our own relationships, can do collaborative fundraising together, and we on our FUBU shit this year, for us, by us. And so we're bringing together 75 leaders from across the Midwest to really just get together and learn from each other and celebrate the wins that we have had, but really get serious about what this moment is requiring from us around power building and bringing our people into movement space and organizing them in a real way. And so there will be abortion funds and RJ orgs that do direct service, and also Black and Brown led civic engagement organizations that have advocacy arms and things like that. And a lot of a subsidiary goal of this summit is that there are a lot of Black and Brown led orgs that I would say are doing RJ work, but don't self-identify as doing RJ work. And so the movement space is more siloed than we would like it to be. So we're trying to break down those barriers, and also break down the stigma that is still in some Black organizing spaces around being pro-abortion, because the RJ framework certainly is not only about abortion, but abortion is there. And so we cannot act like abortion is just like the redheaded stepchild of the movement that we don't want to talk about until we have a win. And then, so we're doing a lot of that work. And then at the end of that week, we will be having our inaugural Celebrate BLACK Gala, where someone across from me is getting an award.
Which, yes. And I appreciate that, like, more than I can really even say. I'm a little nervous about getting up there and speaking, because I feel very emotional about this work, and even just what I've done in my own, work capacity to support people, and support work on the ground. So I appreciate being honored. But I think it's great that you all are doing a gala, because people see it as a party, right? But a gala is a fundraiser. And as I said, like, these spaces are not resourced enough for people to engage in the ways that they feel like are building power, right? At scale. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really inspiring to see you all kind of trailblazing in that space too, because too often we don't have a scarcity mindset. It's the resources are scarce.
Yeah.
And so deciding to make an investment in something that most nonprofit organizations do, especially achieving all the things that you all have achieved at this point, I just have to say shout out to y'all, and shout out to your leadership, and Rhiannon's vision and Aaron's vision, who both founded the organization together to bring it this far, and to be at the point where you're going to put people in a room and, like, it's to celebrate the joy and the wins, but also to say, like, we have to be here for the long term. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that, because again, like, in terms of organizations here in Columbus who've grown and who are doing the things that you all are doing, I'm really excited to continue to see y'all like go to the next level. The convening, the summit, I think it's just really tremendous.
Thank you so much. I mean, yes, the gala is a fundraiser, and I mean, girl, you deserve to be honored, because I mean, just outside of like this, like the work that you do just to like uplift the voices of the people that are doing the work in our city, you do a lot of work in the background to try and improve the philanthropy landscape, especially when it comes to mutual aid and direct service, when a lot of foundations, most of philanthropy, like, will not touch direct service. And so, yeah, I think that the counter to this victory in the Reproductive Freedom Amendment is that people do think it's over. And they
think y'all got it. They're like, oh, yeah, they got it to do all this stuff.
It's like, we got it, but we need help, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, AFO has had a decline in donations, and particularly monthly supporters. Like, monthly recurring donations is the best way to support organizations like AFO and OWA, because of the lack of investment from philanthropy for our direct services. And yeah, just the lack of investment in Ohio, in the Midwest, whether it's the RJ organizations, but all progressive organizations are really going through it at this time. And so we're very grateful to be in the position where we can do a fundraiser of this size, because it was also important for us to your point, like, have a celebration. It is our 6-year anniversary. We're so grateful to be able to honor, like, the other badass women and visionaries and leaders in the space, and also just have a moment to Be like, we did some really dope
Enjoy
stuff.
you just
Yes.
go
Yes.
without being able to rest and really being able to reflect on the things that you've done in the
And
community.
it's also Rhiannon's birthday.
And yes, Rhiannon is not here. She does not like interviews, but I mean, she's been mentioned several times on this show, not on this episode, but on other episodes for being, I mean, the woman's like 5'1". You would walk, some of y'all probably have walked past her in the grocery store, have no idea what this lady is capable of. But I mean, one of the smartest people, most strategic people that I've ever had the honor of knowing. And like I said, I mean, y'all two teaming up, I think, is a match made in heaven. And I mean, did you think little Jordyn was going to help amend the Ohio Constitution?
No, I certainly did not. Yeah, and actually before I was at OWA, I was at another national RJ org, and was incredibly burnt out. It was at the same time as the 2020 uprising, so I was also being beat up by CPD every day. And I was actually going to leave the movement space. I was like, can't do it no more.
Yeah.
I have to go take a nap. And Rhiannon and Aaron at the time, that's what brought me to OWA, because I had great relationships with them both. I remember the OWA launch party and going and supporting them. And when I was incredibly down bad, I remember they were like, just get on a call with us. Like, we'll see what we can, like, we want to be there for you. And in that Zoom call, they offered me a paid sabbatical, and then following my sabbatical, an executive fellowship at OWA. And yeah, that was very pivotal in my career. It was I would say the first time that I felt invested in my leadership, not just because of the output that I could do. Your girl can run a mean campaign. But they saw my leadership and also just like my humanity. Things were also pretty bad in the Ohio Repro Coalition at that time. There was a lot of anti-Blackness that was being centered a lot on the young Black organizers in the space, myself included. And so the reproductive rights space no longer felt like a safe place to land for me. And I was already like 1 foot in the RJ space, but I would say that really solidified that for me. And I was like, no, like this framework is it. Like, I don't know what these white women are over here talking about, but of course, Black women save the day. And my girl, Erin.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they, in many ways, Rhiannon and Aaron, in extending that to me, very much saved me for sure. So yeah. I love Rhiannon and Aaron and OWA.
Well, it obviously was, is the word destiny? I don't know. Maybe it's not, but the
Rhiannon would say strategic.
It was strategic, but I always feel like people are in the right place at the right time, right, together. And so I just appreciate all that you all have done for the state, all that you continue to do. Is there anything else you would want people to know about you or about OWA as you get ready to celebrate your 6th anniversary?
Yes. Probably just that I think people probably either know us for our direct service work or our electoral work. And I'm positive that there are programs that some people don't know of at all. And so just to like check us out more, come hang out with us, come to our events. We have really cute events. There's always snacks. Number one. And then also to donate to AFO, only statewide abortion fund, holding it down. We couldn't do our work through the member assistance program without AFO. And so we're really a match made in heaven. And yes, sign up to be a monthly recurring donor to OWA and AFO, please.
And where can people find information about OWA?
OhioWomen'sAlliance.org. And then we're across all of the social media platforms. I'd be making some little TikToks. You can catch me on the TikTok, Instagram.
On the Clock app.
Yeah. On that Clock app, Instagram, Facebook. We're very easy to find.
What about Abortion Fund of Ohio? If people want to learn more about the fund or if they need services from the fund.
Also, abortionfundofohio.org. Also, AFOs across all social media platforms. In any of our social bios, the link to our warm line is there. Yeah, definitely not only just donating, but also just spreading the word about these services. A lot of people still don't know that abortion funds or practical support programs exist. I didn't know that abortion funds existed when I had an abortion. And so that work is so critical. It's truly like holy work that the AFO team and our member assistance team, Colleen and Maya, are doing every day. It's very directly changing people's lives.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jordyn. I appreciate you coming on.
Always.
And appreciate all of your, like I said, all of your work, and just keep hanging in there.
I'm gonna do it for Ohio every time.
Right.
Every
same. Midwest kids.
OH.
Yep. All right. IO.